Hello, folks. My name is Yellowpelt, and I love xenofiction, so a more realistic approach to warrior cats caught my attention. However, this isn't a very nice review, so if that's what you're looking for, this isn't it. As of now, I have read arcs 1 and 2, so this video will contain spoilers. For the unfamiliar, the Warriors Redux is a rewrite of Warrior Cats. And honestly, the world building is amazing. The clans feel like distinct groups rather than hero clan, villain clan, fish clan, and whatever. But as for the actual story, grab something from the prey pile because this is quite the analysis. Most characters in the Redux are nasty pieces of work. Compare the original Blue Star to Redux Blue Star. She's stern but compassionate, mentoring Firepaw and even serving as a mother figure to him despite his kitty pet roots. But in the Redux?
Nope.
When Firepaw says he needs time to adjust, she bluntly tells him the clan doesn't care. She repeatedly punishes him for acts of kindness towards outsiders, and even when Firepaw is renamed Fireheart, Blue Star tells him to defend this clan rather than your clan. Instead of tough but caring, she comes across as cold and needlessly harsh. But don't feel too bad, because the hero isn't that great either. Fireheart, who was once kind and earnest, is now bratty and rude to the point of being obnoxious. Whether he's making someone's emotional moment about himself or constantly being awful to others, he is exhausting to read about. When a main character spends so much time being unpleasant, you start to wonder, why is he the hero again? As for the story's attempt at a villain, there's Tiger Claw, who is portrayed as a well-intentioned cat who went too far, despite the fact that he murders multiple clanmates and severely injures another. We're told that he views the clan as his family, but nothing actually shows that. When the story tries to make him a sympathetic villain, it doesn't feel like nuance. It feels like the narrative is demanding sympathy for someone who hasn't earned it, and this attitude affects the entire cast. We're constantly told the clans are built upon loyalty, trust, and community, but we're not shown that. Relationships of every kind feel hollow. There's no sense of kinship in the Redux, and without that, emotional moments just fail to stick the landing. If you don't care about the characters, you don't care what happens to them. Which is a problem because almost everyone, including the so-called hero, is unbearable. And not even in a fun, love-to-hate way either. More like, I want to smack them all with a rotting rat. It's important to note that this rewrite is heavily influenced by its criticisms of the original series, most of which focus on how unrealistic Warriors is. Which is an odd complaint for books aimed at middle schoolers. Don't get me wrong, I adored the world building, but I believe some choices were thrown in for the sake of making the world bleak. There are two concepts regarding parenting: that male cats will attempt to kill kittens that aren't theirs, and that new mothers may suffer from Luth-Ni, a condition where extreme stress may drive them to kill and eat their kittens. However, neither idea is explored meaningfully within the story. Both are briefly explored in a few chapters and then completely abandoned. This ties into a broader issue with the story. It relies so heavily on dialogue that it causes constant exposition dumps. When Fireheart is about to kill some babies in the nursery, Yellowfang tells him what just happened, even though the audience already saw it. The exact thing happens when Blue Star tells Fireheart her kits are long gone. It feels as if the narrative doesn't believe that the audience can pick up on Now you want me to feel bad for Blue Star? Sure, this was meant to be her sympathetic moment, but when a character spends most of the story being needlessly cruel, dropping that line out of nowhere doesn't magically redeem her. Like, did she kill her children? I can only imagine how that happened. I mean, the alternative option isn't great either. It also takes away what made Blue Star's arc compelling, without the context that she sacrificed her kits for her faith, and to keep a ruthless cat out of power. Her reaction to Tiger Claw's betrayal feels less like a crisis of faith and more like vague suffering, which isn't helped by the lack of a strong relationship Fireheart has with her in this version. There's nothing wrong with rewriting stories, but at a certain point, it can seem more concerned with fixing the original. It forgets to simply work as a story, and nowhere is that clearer than the narrative's obsession with realism. Warrior Cats is hardly realistic, but the Redux will gladly remind you that this rewrite is superior because it uses cat biology, just in case you missed the 67th reminder. What it completely ignores is that this is a children's series. There's a massive difference between using realism to enrich a xenofiction story and using it to make the story pointlessly dark for shock value. The Redux, of course, does the latter. The clans have the warrior code that sets them apart from loners and rogues. They refuse to play with their prey, regarding them as gifts from StarClan. If every single cat is reduced to a vicious animal willing to lash out, what exactly makes a clan different from a rogue gang? The problem is that many animal behaviors are reprehensible if you place them on human-like characters. The original established that these cats are essentially little people in fur coats, whose very human-like thoughts we can see. After a certain point, the audience loses any sense of relatability that stems from the more anthropomorphized thought processes of the original books. So when the Redux's narrative establishes ideas such as,
the main character has to resist the urge to kill babies,
it reads as being pointlessly dark instead of compelling. And it's not something audiences want their so-called hero to be doing. Make it make sense. And that wraps up the analysis of the Warrior Redux. I hope you liked the video and learned a thing or two. My intent with this video is to enlighten those who wish to write stories like this themselves. A what not to do when you're writing xenofiction with a more realistic approach in mind. The Redux had a strong concept, but I believe the issue is that the story lacked a strong sense of identity. Many xenofiction stories thrive because they make real animals fantastical. The Redux struggled because it tried to make fantastical animals real. In doing so, it lost what made the original compelling, and that leaves the narrative feeling unfocused. Very unfocused. If you're looking for xenofiction that balances serious themes with strong storytelling, I'd recommend almost anything but the Redux. Wings of Fire, Guardians of Gahule, Wolves of the Beyond, I Hope So, and Watership Down are all excellent stories that explore darker themes without being disrespectful. If you wish to read the Redux for yourself to draw your own conclusions, feel free, because you might enjoy the first few chapters or so. That said, I've made my stance on it rather clear.